Welcome back to How Should I Introduce You? I am Silas Grant, and I am pleased to be joined by two friends of mine today that I've been meaning to connect for quite some time. So I'm glad we got a chance to organize this today. I'm joined by Jason Jones and Joseph Speight Jr. So welcome, Jason and Joseph, to How Should I Introduce You?
What's going on? Thank you for having me, man. And Joseph, it's good to meet you, brother. Silas, thank you for connecting us, man. And what's up, everybody watching?
Good.
Likewise, I got to concur with that, man. Like anytime Silas says he wants to connect somebody, I got to be connected to him. I,
Yeah,
I I know this brother and I know his connection, so absolutely, thank you, appreciate it.
Sure,
absolutely.
sure. So how we normally start this thing is I read, a brief bio about both of the people that are on, and I ask them to share, some quick bullet points of how they'd like to be introduced. I'll start with Jason. Jason is a proud husband and dad. He's a lead pastor at Zion Church, Woodbridge, relationship and marriage counselor, St. Mary's College and Princeton Seminary educated, servant leader and justice seeker, strategic thinker, musician, writer, and politics nerd. And his favorite quote from himself is, "I'm here to help." So, Jason, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man.
All right. All right. And then Joseph Speight Jr., father and husband, HBCU graduate and lifelong learner, educator and leader, a mentor and a mentee, overthinker and writer. He trusts God. So, Joseph, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother.
All right,
Absolutely.
good, good. So, Jason, I want to start, man, with your quote, "I'm here to help." And I know that the three of us, we are always extending our hands to people. Um, but, how does help look when you bring it? Like, what's the process of you looking at a situation or looking at a person and saying, hey, they need my help, or I want to offer my help? Like, how does that start? What's that process look like?
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting question. So I think it starts with communication with the person, if possible, and an honest assessment of just where are they, right? Where are they? What do they need? What are they facing? What are the challenges? What are they backed up against? All those kind of trying to get a clear picture of that. And I think from there, then there's a second question. What are my gifts, my talents, my resources, my abilities? Like what's in my bag, so to speak, that I have to offer? Um, Jeff Immelt, who's former CEO of GE, once said that in a crisis, you can only bring to bear the tools that you already have in your box, so to speak, right? So yeah, I think that's an important question. Like, what do I have? And then three, what is my bandwidth? Like, what do I have time? Do I have energy? Do I have passion? Do I feel a burden? Because there are a lot of fights that matter, but every fight isn't yours necessarily, right? And I think all of us, whether we realize it or not, we make a calculation of whether or not to step into a situation based on a number of factors. And I think one of them has to be is just, as the Bible talks about, counting the cost. Like, what is this going to cost me? Is it going to cost me time? Is it going to cost me money? Is it going to cost me sleep? Is it going to cost me time with my family? What is the ask, so to speak, and trying to understand what the cost is to me, and do I feel a burden do I feel a burden and a pull to jump into the situation? So I think I would ask myself those three questions.
Yeah, yeah. Joseph, when you saw that quote from him, because I shared the bio with you ahead of time, what did you think about that quote when you saw it?
Yeah, it resonated with me, right? Like I think I am someone that's always trying to jump in. I'm willing to help. I think I'm also learning how to say no. I think one thing that you just said was, thinking about like what's the cost, and so for me it is, I'm so eager sometimes to help support and to do different things, but I've learned that sometimes you have to say no because of the cost, because of the cost that and the impact that it may have on your family, because of the cost and the impact that it may have on your own personal health, because of the cost and impact that it may have on your own sanity, to take on so many things at one time. And so, like being able to balance what God has called you to do, but also understanding that He'll give you the grace to get it done. Right? He's not
Yeah.
going to put you in a situation where He's going to connect you to someone or to something, and you don't have the grace to get it done. And so how are you tapping into that grace to get it done as opposed to your own strength? Like really finding that balance for me is something that definitely resonates with what you just said.
Yeah, that's
I
good, man.
I saw this guy. His name is Jesse Itzler. He started a private jet company, and his wife started Spanx. So they're like billionaires, right?
Mhm.
And he talked about saying no and the importance of saying it. So you guys bringing that up, is really right on time because I've been thinking about this story he shared.
Mhm.
He talked about being invited to a dinner, and he had some other things to do, and he just didn't feel like going to the dinner, and so he declined. And he knew where they were going because he got invited, and he called the restaurant and he ordered shots for the entire table, and they didn't expect the shots to come to the table. And when they got there, the bartender gave them a message that it was from him. And he said that, at that point, he became the topic of conversation at the table. They were so happy that he was able to do that, even though he wasn't able to attend. And the point he was making was that there's definitely power in saying no. And he said the next level is when you begin to think about a supplemental thing you can do, even if you can't provide someone with the assistance that they want from you. So
Mhm.
I've been thinking a lot recently about, okay, I can't be everywhere all the time,
Mhm.
right? But when I say no, is there a supplemental thing that I can provide to still add value, right? If you invite me somewhere, Jason, and I can't make it, if you want me to speak to a group, can I find someone else that can
Mhm.
come in my place, right? Or, I also do this thing now in my phone. I keep a folder in my notes, and it's like a gratitude IOU list
Mhm.
where people that have done things for me in 2021, I just write a note. And if something comes up that I have that I can give away, let me go to that list first. And
Mm.
people that looked out for me, people I couldn't follow through on, just keeping tabs of that. So I just wanted to share that. That wasn't even a
No,
question, just a
No,
matter of
that's
sharing.
good.
so it's funny you say that, Silas. I think about the story of the good, like the story of the Good Samaritan in the Bible, Luke chapter 10. And bottom line is the story there. There's a man who came across a man who was attacked by robbers. They basically beat him up, took all the stuff, and left him for dead. And there was this guy, the scripture calls him a Levite, who came across the guy, showed him kindness, took pity on him, bandaged his wounds, poured oil on the whole thing. And that at a certain point, he took the man to an inn,
Mhm.
right? Took care of him. And then he gave the innkeeper some money and said, look, this should cover him while I'm gone. I gotta go. When I return, look after him while I'm gone. When I return, I'll pay you back for anything that, any overage or whatever it may be. And I always thought that was really interesting. And my pastor actually pointed this passage out to me a while ago, just thinking about that exact thing. Like, one, boundaries around our help and
Yep.
sort of how we step into situations, but also this idea that there's a certain point, like if I can't do something for you,
Mhm.
can I put you in touch with someone who can? Can I leave you at an inn where somebody else can care for you?
Yeah.
And for all of us, like to your point, Silas, your care also, like your help is going to it's going to run out at a certain point. You're going to reach the end of your bandwidth. You got to go home to your family. You got to do, whatever it is, right? Can you tag out with somebody else who can sort of take the next leg, take the baton for the next leg of the journey and step into the situation and, and give you an opportunity to rest or recharge or
Mhm.
refuel or whatever it might be. And that's just something, I think that's a really mature way of kind of thinking about help. Because when we first start trying to help people, and I say that saying a lot, I'm just here to help. But when you start down that road, it's really just the zeal to do whatever you can, and you just kind of jump in head first without really thinking through it. But over time, and as you burn out and as you go through that kind of thing, you learn that, what, at a certain point, I'm gonna have to tag somebody else in
Yeah.
or get
Yep.
some additional help, to
Yep.
try and deal with the situation instead of just taking it all on ourselves. So
Yep.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, man. I'm sorry.
Yep. You know what that reminds me of? The, the people I think that do this the most, and you guys correct me if this isn't the case on your end, but my wife does a great job of doing that. Like if we can't attend an event, she will think of a gift that she can send If it's a baby shower that we can't attend together, she's gonna think of something, sending something to the baby, and not just a newborn baby. She's gonna get it at 3 to 6 months because she knows the baby's gonna grow. In my mind, I'm thinking, why not get something that's in a newborn size, right? My wife does a good job of like thinking of those things to be able to send when we can't do something, or if we can't tap into our own presence being in the space, but like being mindful of like how to extend some type of thank you, or extend some type of appreciation for them even inviting us to the space. So my wife does a great job of that, and I'm sure your
Same,
wives do the same. I know they do the same.
same, same.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I know both of your wives, and you guys know my wife,
Yep.
and I have spent time around you know both of you guys as couples, and you guys have seen my wife and I together.
Yep.
Talk a bit about what your growth has been like as a result of being in that union of marriage, and how important that is for balancing you and helping you to grow into who you are today.
Sure. I'll jump in, man. That's a good question. I think my wife has taught me how to be more open with my thoughts, more open about my frustrations, to be more open about communicating my feelings and being honest in the space. I think she is the one who's taught me how to say no. Like it goes back to what I just said about like saying no. Like when I'm overextending myself and I want to get things done, and I feel like if something's not done in a space, it frustrates me. And then I'm coming home and I'm being frustrated to her, and then I'm being frustrated to my son, and this is ongoing cycle. And I wasn't making that connection before, right? And so I think, just being in this marriage with her and walking this walk with her, it's pushed me to become a better person. It's pushed me to be more thoughtful about my decisions. It's pushed me to be more confident with saying no, right? And so for me, it is. We were having this conversation the other day, and we were just saying like divorce is not an option for us. When we see people getting divorced, and when we see people, going through things, we all go through things, right? But divorce is not an option for us. And so how are we going to sit and have this conversation that needs to be held? How are we going to figure this thing out? Because divorce is not an option for us. And so in that space, it is, this marriage has been, me communicating with someone I consider my best friend,
Yeah.
someone that pushes me to be a better man, someone that pushes me to be a better father, and all those attributes and all those bullet points that I sent you, Silas. She pushes me to do those things better. And so for me, it is, it's been life changing. It's been a journey. It is one that has its ebbs and its flows, as you all know. But it's one that I definitely, I'm grateful for. I thank God for it. I couldn't imagine being in 2021 being a single man, because there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's crazy out here. I am grateful for the thing that God has given me, that good and great thing that God has given me. So yeah, that's how it's pushed me.
Yeah, listen, Joseph, you said it, man. The streets are not calling my
The
name.
streets ain't calling me, bro.
The streets are not calling my name. I am not going to the streets. No, man, you put that so well. I wish I could just ditto everything you said. My wife makes me better in in everything I can think of. Um, you know, Silas, you know my wife. My wife's an achiever, and she's really, really driven and really, really focused. Um, and I mean, she leaves everything better than she left it. Like everything she touches is better when like every job she's ever been in, all of her friendships, all of her it's like she just leaves things better. She always adds value to people, and she's added tremendous value to me. But I think I tried to move my focus and my love for my wife away from solely what she does for me, and just trying to appreciate her as who she is. We can be we can be dangerously patriarchal in that way, and that we center our wives' value around solely what I get out of the deal, right? And I try to I try really hard to see her for who she is. Like she's just a gift.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of me, Oh man. Yeah, my wife, one of the things that my wife has taught me specifically is just what you said, Joseph, the importance of sharing where I, how I feel and where I am about stuff. Because as men, and especially all three of us who on some level communicate for a living,
Hmm.
that doesn't necessarily mean we feel like communicating or we're communicating well at home.
That's right.
And if we're not careful, we can mistake the fact that, well, I talk to people all the time, or I'm talking in front of people all the time, and whatever it
Hmm.
may be. We can conflate that with, well, I'm communicating well with you, and I'm
That's right.
communicating consistently and accurately and all that. And my wife has taught me how to be more mindful of that, because I am not a person that goes to anyone with my problems.
Yeah.
I'm not someone that goes to other people with my frustrations. And that was an issue in my relationship with my wife, because I thought I was trying to spare her my
Hmm.
feelings and my
Hmm.
frustrations. I was trying to spare her my pain and my difficulty around certain things, especially stuff that we faced as a couple. And what I learned was, because I thought not sharing was lifting a burden from her.
Hmm.
But in reality, what I was doing is that I was creating a void,
Hmm.
right? Because I'm not speaking into it.
Hmm.
And when we do that, our wives feel like they're in the foxhole alone.
Hmm.
So she's dealing, we're dealing with stuff, and because I'm trying to keep quiet and just, grin and bear it and just be tough and all that, right? She's like, well, wait, do you care? Are you okay? Are you processing this too? What's going on with you? And I had to learn to open up and actually tell her, like, no, I'm upset too, I'm frustrated too, I'm sad too, or whatever it might be. And just that simple thing, you know I, it would be one thing to focus on communicating about a particular issue,
Hmm.
but what I found over time, it is more the power of creating an environment where communication is regular and normal and easy. And what that does is, it doesn't just fix this thing, it actually helps fix the next five things, right? Because the next time things come up, I feel more comfortable communicating about it, because there was a level of safety in communicating about the last thing. And that becomes a rhythm and kind of a thing. And ultimately, man, I think my wife has taught me the value of connecting with her in that way. I can be a bit of a loner, I can be a bit of a recluse, I'm an introvert, as strange as that may seem, and I need my time and that kind of thing. My wife is an extrovert. She's
Okay.
energized by being around people.
Yeah.
I'm energized by being alone. And because of that, I can get into my shell, right? And she's taught me the value of as a matter of practicality, just making sure that I peek my head out to touch base with her and communicate with her, so that we've got that regular rhythm of communication happening in the home. And I don't think that would happen. I don't know if I would have gotten that if I hadn't married her.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a laundry list of stuff. I don't know if it would have happened if I hadn't married her. But that's one thing specifically that I know. Has been a huge benefit of marrying my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful, man,
That's
because
powerful.
one of the things that you said was just sharing information with her, data, right? That's all it is, information and data, right? How you feeling,
Mm-hmm.
your emotions, right? She gets a gauge for that, and then she takes that information and then she's processing it in a way where she knows how to react. And like you said, you're building that muscle memory. So she knows when this
Yep.
happens, this is typically how he wants me to help, right? So when you say your quote, I'm just here to help, she needs to know how to help. And she can't do that unless she has that sort of data set to be able to respond to it. But, I was telling a friend of mine recently, when you talk about Joseph, divorce and things of that nature, one of the ways in which that happens is when you find yourself not sharing what's new in your life
Mm.
with the
Hmm.
person that you love the most, right?
Hmm.
So, Jason, that's key.
Yep.
That's very, very key, man. And I appreciate what you said. That was really, really something that I'm going to take to heart, because I'm also that kind of person. I don't really share how I'm feeling, and I didn't think about the fact that you might be leaving somebody on an island because they just don't know what you're feeling. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
That's good. That's good.
I've been reading this book, right? It's called Think Like a Monk, and I'm almost finished the book, and like maybe 10 pages away, and it talks about trust, right? And the author, he gives the 4 levels of trust: competence, right, which means that the person has the right skills or the authority to understand who you are and that sort of thing. Care, basically they concerned about you. Character, that even if they don't know you that well, right, you can judge their character. And then consistency, so they may not be competent, they may not, care as much, they may not have high character, but they're going to be consistent, right? So competence, care, character, and consistency. And he said that those 4 things don't always show up at the same time, but you have to identify what you need from that person at that time. When you look at those 4 items, right? Competence, care, character, and consistency, which one reigns supreme for you in terms of what you need in terms of trusting people that are close to you?
That's good, Silas.
Man, that's a good question.
That's a good question. It's a really good question.
And you're gonna make me choose one.
Yeah, just I mean, obviously we want all 4, but like in certain moments, man, when you really need that trust, which one reigns supreme? Competence, care, character, or consistency?
All right, I'll jump out the window. I gotta say care.
Okay.
And it's all of these are absolutely essential, right? But the old adage is true: people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Mm-hmm.
And even as Christians, when you look at the example of Christ, what he extended to people first was care. He demonstrated his care for people even before he addressed issues with their competence or their character or even their consistency, right, depending on the situation. But before he addressed anything else, he started with care. And when I think of my life, right, what I'm really looking for from people, I definitely want competency. I want competent people around me. I definitely want high character people around me, but I need to know you care first. And maybe some of those other things will determine where the relationship goes. But I don't think it's like care is kind of the front door for me, I guess I would say.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you about care being one of your top ranked. I would also add the character piece though, right? And I think about it from the leadership aspect and how we deal with when I had to deal with teachers in a school building, right? Or in a learning environment, right? Like, are you going to continue to do what's best for children, even if you don't have the competency, right? Like if you cannot teach the best, if you don't know the content, if you don't know the pedagogy and the teacher moves that need to happen, do you have the character that if I step out of this room, I still know that the children are in the best hands with you, right? And so I think that also ties into your point about care, but that character piece just really resonates with me as far as like one of those top tiers and one of those top priorities. It's hard to choose just one, but I would definitely have to go with character.
And Silas, let me also say this too. I think trust deserves to be unpacked a little bit more because what is trust, right? What does that mean? And I think it kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Like for example, if I go to the doctor, right? I don't really care about your care is cool. Like you should have bedside manner. And I don't care if you're a good person, right? But do you have the competence,
right,
right, to complete this particular operation, or do you have the competence to answer the question and make the right, to make the right diagnosis? So that's it. Just kind of depends on the situation, right? Consistency. Like, man, I need my barber to be consistent. Cut my hair, Look, man, get this hair right. Get this shape up right every week.
Right. Make sure this beard good, man. Don't take the beard down, man. Come on now.
Yeah, So I think, I mean, I think the point is trust. I think trust is always a factor, but I think it's different depending on sort of the nature of the relationship. So that's just a nuance to this that I think is important. But I definitely agree with you, Joseph. Yeah, that especially in the educational environment, I see that analogy, I see that idea about character being big, and I definitely agree.
Yeah, I would probably say care in long-term relationships, because if we're locked in for a lifetime, I feel like if you care enough, you'll find a way to learn what it is that I need from you, right? And if you can't provide that, you'll care enough to be able to say it in a kind way. I can't do that, but maybe there are other things that I can do. So I think when you talk about the type of trust or the type of relationship, when I think about trust, I'm thinking first about those long-term, lifetime relationships. Um, and it's funny, right? I want to transition a bit, Jason, because you said something that was really important. You gave an example of going to the doctor, right? And so when we talk about faith in our belief system, people have a variety of belief systems. But I recall one time I was at the emergency room with my dad, and I saw this woman, and she appeared to be a Muslim. She's a nurse. My dad was in extreme pain. And I looked at my dad and I said to myself, if my dad did not like Muslims, he would have to subject himself in that moment to her care, right? And his beliefs, whatever they would be in that hypothetical scenario, he would have to put to the side, right? Then, about 2 minutes later, I saw a guy walk by who, maybe I'm wrong, but it appeared that he was openly gay. And that thought came back. If my dad had something against people that were gay, that potentially he would have to subject himself to the care of that person. I started looking around the hospital, and it was a really good moment for me, because when you go to the hospital, you need urgent attention right then. Like, you need people to respond to you. And I'm thinking about this world that we live in, right? We're just getting beyond the verdict in Minnesota. We're just getting beyond all these sorts of things. And I begin to wonder, in terms of our preferences, in terms of like what we believe, in terms of like what we subscribe to, no matter what it is, like how much of those things that we've been taught, those things that we've, been accustomed to, no matter what they are, this period that we're in, to me personally, it feels like it's making me reshape my thoughts on everything. So I just wanted to talk a bit about just what's going on in the world, diversity, how you guys are, shifting and growing. We're all new parents, right? So you're starting to see things that are different. I think about my daughter and the fact that, you know, she's so just her. She doesn't care who's around. She's going to dance. I'm so much the opposite. I don't want to instill in her my preconceived notions. Just all these things that are happening to us at this point, right? Just what are your thoughts around, like, just in general, your beliefs, and like what's one thing you've seen that has caused you to think maybe I should rethink at least that perspective of in my mind around how I look at things.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one because I think it's interesting that you talked about us being new parents and everything that's happening in this world. And I was telling it's interesting that you bring this up because I was having a conversation with my wife the other day. Is that my son Kingston has taught me what childlike faith looks and sounds like. Like when he comes in the house, he doesn't question if he's going to get fed. He doesn't question if he's going to get changed. He doesn't question what he's going to wear. Like he does not worry about any of that, right? And so oftentimes we talk about in our faith about trusting God and believing that He's going to do the work that through us, right? And so for me, I learned childlike faith by watching him when he knows that something is going to happen, he doesn't think twice about it. He doesn't turn to look at me on if it's going to happen. He just knows that it's going to happen. And when I think about everything that's happening in this world, there are so many things that look opposing to what the word of God says. but I have to believe that God's word is true. And he's shown me time and time again through situations that he's brought me through. You know that the word is true at the end of the day. And no matter what it looks like, no matter what we're facing, I have to believe that what he said is going to happen, that I'm protected from disease, that I'm protected from the viruses and things that like when I think about my son and his walk and what he does and the way that he lives, like I'm compelled by just how clear he is about what he believes. And
Hmm.
sometimes it makes me question when I think about how I trust God. Am I really not thinking about it? Have I really settled in my spirit that I can trust God in this space? That I can just fall back and just trust God and believe that it's going to happen? Or am I questioning it in the back of my mind? Does it always play out? Oh God, I don't know how you're going to do it. Am I trying to take control of it? Or do I have that childlike faith that I see within my son? And so for me, I think the two of us being new parents and you bringing this conversation up about being parents and about faith, that really resonates with me because I've learned what it looks and sounds like to really have that childlike faith that I hear about.
Complete facts. Complete facts. Um, yeah, Joseph, man. So I think it's Mark chapter 10. Talks about receiving the kingdom of God like a little child, right? And there's so much to that. And just like you, my son is almost 9 months old, and he does all the stuff that a rambunctious 9 month old boy does. And to your point, he is not concerned about what's happening around him, right? And it's so interesting, man. It's the greatest thing in the world. Somebody asked me the most rewarding thing about fatherhood is watching his face light up when I walk in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd pay $1,000,000 if I had it to see that. Like it's the greatest thing in the world. And whenever I'm near, it's like he can sense my presence. When I walk into the room, he knows I'm there. When I'm downstairs and he hears me speak, he perks up.
Yeah.
You know, he knows my sheep know my voice and they
Yeah.
hearken to it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like it's such a great illustration of how we as children of God relate to him,
Mm.
right? Um, but to your point, but to your question, Silas, I think for me, I've always held these two ideas in tension, and it is that God's word and God does not change. Our relationship and understanding of him does.
Mm.
And because of that, I've got to be willing to reevaluate anything that doesn't line up, right? Um, Anytime I'm looking at somebody, because all of us have our own preconceived notions, we have our own respective lenses based on our wiring, our experience, our background, our learning, whatever it may be, right? And all of us, if we're honest, we look at certain things and certain people a certain way, right? And you have to, so we have to begin asking these questions like, okay, based on what I understand about God and knowing that God is love, like what does that, how would that compel me, Joseph, to use that term, to respond in this moment, right? What does that mean? And I think we've got to be in a space, especially in this day and age, where we're not so where we are rigid about doctrinal issues, and I don't think you move on those, but I do think in terms of how we love and how we connect with people, we've got to remember that, like, man, Jesus was willing to sit down with like whoever. Now, he told the truth, but he always led with love and led with compassion. And we always say, like, yeah, what would Jesus do? Well, like look, look at the gospels and actually look.
Mhm.
Um, I think in our day and age, man, I think we're in a space now where, I'll say it this way, Silas, where I think faith is kind of getting dragged around by the collar in many spaces. Um, where if you believe this, you got to vote like this, and if you vote like this, that means you believe like this. And I'm not going to get into that discussion right now because that'll be a whole other conversation. But I think we've got to get back to the place where, if we operate with certain convictions, then let's operate from that space. But the question we have to go back to was like, all right, what would love do? What would love say? How would love respond? And love may and see, love can say you shouldn't shoot me while not hating you in the process, right? I can still wish you well on some level and not want to allow you to take my life. Like, we've got to fight for our humanity to not become consumed by hate because of certain things. And I just think it's I think having a son, man, and Joseph, just I think you relate, having a black son in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
My son's going to be big.
Yep.
You know, I can just imagine seeing him at 14, 15,
Yep.
dressed in whatever he'll be dressed in at that time, maybe not looking like a child that comes from a certain kind of home, and you can decide whatever certain kind of home means, right? And how he might be seen, and what does that mean, right? So how do I prepare him? But also, how do I show up in the world to try to make it a little safer for him if the Lord tarries, right? How do I show up to try to do that? Can I leave the community a little safer so that it's a little safer for him out here? And I think I, to answer your question, I know we bounced around a bit, Silas. I think it should cause us to reevaluate things. And I think that's okay. I think what we want, even from a faith space, we want nice, neat, black and white answers to everything, right? And once it's been said, we decided and it's been settled for all. But I think we've got to be really willing to reevaluate where we are in certain things and how we respond to certain things, how we handle certain things, just based on the truth of God's word and how our convictions land. And I think our current climate has taught me that more than ever, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add to what you just said? Like, for me, it's trying to figure out how to show more love, right? And because people are looking for so many things, people are trying to figure out what everything is happening in the world, and people are seeking out something that only I feel like God can give, right? And so for me, like, how am I showing that godly love through my actions and my interactions with you, that you're attracted to the God that I serve,
Yeah.
right? Like, because here's the thing, you don't want to serve a God if I'm out here acting crazy, but every time you see me, I'm talking about I'm highly favored and blessed. Like, you acting crazy. Like, I don't want to serve that God. But if I'm showing you the type of God love, right? Like, if you have a question about something, and how am I, goes back to, you like, how can I serve? How can I help? Like, it goes back to that point as well. Like, how am I showing love in this space, that when another brother is trying to figure out why we got all these killings, and why the violence is increasing, and like, how am I showing godly love in that space so that he's attracted to the God that I serve? And I can tell him that it's not about me, but it's about the God that I serve. Like, for me, it's about, like, how am I making that connection so that you can know about this God that can show you that love that you're looking for. Like, I'm always now in this space and in this climate and in this world thinking about how to make that connection. That for me is deeper than it's ever been before.
Yeah. And it's funny. So Joseph, when you said that, I thought about, and I just shared on this a little bit recently, John chapter 13, where Jesus gives the disciples the new commandment, right? Love one another. Just as I've loved you, you should love one another. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. I think that's verse 34. And it's a really interesting picture, because we know there's this previous love one another, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. Love one another, love others like you love yourself, and kind of these levels of love. And then, Jesus, before he departs, he kind of sets it on the top shelf and said, no, love one another like I've loved you, without condition, right? Without strings, and so on and so forth. And that love would prove to the world that you're my disciples. You don't have to go around beating your chest and tell everybody how much you love Jesus. Treat people right. Let that be the indicator, And I think we get lost in that sometimes, because I think we've all had experiences with people who say they love God and treat you bad. And every, people have a bad day, and I'm sure I've been guilty
Yeah.
of it myself, right? But that there's a way that we show up in the world
Yeah.
that will prove to the world who we serve, Joseph. So to your point, like letting your light shine, let people see those good deeds so they'll see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven.
Yeah.
But that's how we show up in the world in the way that reflects who we say we serve, right?
Yeah.
We can put a lot of lip service to it, but the question becomes, where's your work?
Mm-hmm.
How do we show up? How do we love? How do we serve? You know, how do we advocate? How do we share?
Yeah.
I think about you as an educator, man, like just that work in and of itself, that's an act of love. Like,
Yeah.
that's not something you just do as a great career path. You gotta love that,
Gotta love it.
right?
Yep.
And I think those kinds of acts of love are reflective of who we say we serve. Ideally, they should be.
Yeah.
Um, so that's, but again, thinking about being a parent, I also think about the things that I want him to emulate. Like that's something I want him to emulate. If nothing else, I want people to say, man, that boy, look, he treats people right.
Yeah.
Not just that he has good manners, he got
Yeah.
good home training and stuff we love to say. No, he's good to people. He
Yeah.
looks out for people. He's kind to people. He's empathetic to people. He looks out for people and that kind of stuff. If I hear those kinds of things about my son, I'll know I've done something right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Both of you all said some things that overlap that really, really have been on my mind prior to you saying it. Both of you all talked about people seeking the answers, people trying to figure things out. We were talking about relationships, we were talking about marriages, and I had this revelation some time ago that you're not going to have a successful marriage until you get to the point where you find an issue that you don't have an answer to and you're committed to pushing through and staying together.
Yep.
And I think in every close relationship that you have, whether it's with God, whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with your parents or your kids, if you have to have an answer for everything, it's probably not as great of a relationship as you think it is.
That's right.
And I think even understanding the world today, trying to get every answer. I mean, obviously, seeking knowledge is important, but if you cannot function without having every answer, I question how far you can go in these relationships. So, just the both of you mentioning that whole concept of figuring things out or people trying to, it just reminded me of the fact that I don't know that we're meant to know everything. I don't know
That's
that
right.
we're meant to have every answer. And if I have to have every answer to be a friend with you, then we're really probably not friends,
Yep.
right? I'm not going to understand everything you do, and you're not going to understand everything I do. And I may not even have time to explain that, neither do you. So, that's what was on my mind as you guys were speaking. That message was just flowing in my mind again, that in these relationships that we have, we don't always get the answers, and we gotta be comfortable with that. And I thought about this story that I heard the guy Tim Story talk about, and you may know who he is. Tim Story's out
Mm-hmm.
of California. He's a preacher and also like a spiritual advisor for like celebrities. And he said he took this athlete back to his hometown. He was going through some trouble. He hated everything about his life despite his success. He took him back to the playground at his school when he was growing up. And they actually committed a trespassing crime. They jumped over the fence and went to the school, and this big football player got on the swings and he was crying. He thought about that moment on the swings and how great life used to be. And Tim Story, while he told this story, he made this sort of statement or question. He was like, think about any person that you care about and think about if you only had 30 more seconds with them and you had to replay your best moment with them, what would that 30 seconds look like? And that has helped me in 99% of my relationships. All of my friends, all of the people I love, I think about the best 30 seconds I've ever had with them. And whenever I don't get along with them, I just think about those best 30 seconds. So I ask the both of you, like, just pick one person. Doesn't matter who it is. Pick one person and tell me like the best 30 seconds you had with that person.
Hmm.
And while you guys do that, I'll do you a favor. I'll share with you guys my best 30 seconds for each of you. So I'll do that real quick. Joseph, for you,
Gotcha.
man, after I was able to make a recommendation for daycare for Kingston, my best 30 seconds was the first time I saw his picture on the app. And I was like, wow, right? Like that, wow, like he's in there. Like, and I knew how great the daycare was. So I was like, this is gonna be a game changer, right? So
Yeah.
that was it for us two. Um, I remember Jason, you and I were out and you pulled me to the side and you were like, man, we were at some event and you were like, man, you've had an impact on a lot of people in this room. And you reminded me of my value in that moment. You were like, man, like you really are in um, the space that you're supposed to be in. And so that moment when you shared that with me was really really a good moment. So those are the moments I think about with the both of you. So now that I've given you a few more seconds, give me 30 seconds with a person that's the best 30 seconds you've had with them.
Yeah, I'll give you mine. I'll tell you what this triggered in my mind and made me think about. When I was 14, my best friend got shot, and I remember I was actually supposed to go to the movies with him that evening, where he actually was shot. And I
Wow.
remember a conversation where he said to me like, "Hey," because he had dropped out of high school at that point, and he was like, "Hey, this ain't who you are, bro. Like, go finish high school, do what you need to do, listen to your parents, all that good stuff, right?" Mind you, we're both 14. He got shot that evening. I think the 30 seconds that I remember were exactly when he told me to continue on the trajectory that I continued on. The finishing high school. The streets ain't for you, bro. Like, stop playing. Like, get out of here. Like, go do what you need to do with your parents. And so I recall those 30 seconds because I could have been with him in the same place, right? Like I could have been right there to actually see him get shot and to be killed in that moment. But because of what he shared with me prior to that, I wasn't there. I was at home getting my homework done. I was out, in a space where that was opposite of where he was. And so if I had to replay the 30 seconds, I'm compelled to think about the 30 seconds of him telling me, like, even though they weren't like simultaneous, like he didn't tell me right before he got shot. I remember and can recall him saying, "Bruh, like, go do what you need to do." And because he told me that, go do what you need to do, I wasn't with him in the space. And how my life could have changed if I weren't doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Sure, sure.
Wow. So that mine is sort of similar because mine is with a friend who's passed. Um, someone I used to see. I saw him every week for years for most of my upbringing. He cut my head for years, and I'll I'll never forget. We've had numerous conversations over the years. I remember when you get ordained, there's sort of a defense of your faith and a defense of your positions doctrinally that's in front of a panel of clergy. It's like a doctoral dissertation defense almost. You stand in front of a group of people and they fire questions at you, while there's also a room full of clergy watching you. Stand, looking right through you, right? And I'd gotten through that part on a Friday night, and the next day it was like the actual public celebration. So there's a service where you get your certificate and you celebrate and all that. The Friday night part was private, and I remember after the Friday night portion, I went to get a haircut because I couldn't get one before. I was like, man, I gotta be fresh. And my man waited for me. It was like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I remember how proud he was. Just and this is somebody we've known each other since 14, 15, right? and to watch how proud he was of me, like for something that had nothing to do with him, just how excited he was. I never forgot that. And that's a part of his character, man. He was that kind of guy. But I'll never forget how I was more excited because he was so excited. For me, I was like, whoo, I got through it. But just seeing how much it meant to him that I made it, um, that I kind of achieved that, I'll never forget how excited he was for me. And that stuck with me. And it reminded me of what an honor it was and how serious it was, to see how big it was for him that I had done it. So I'll never forget that.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Those are two really awesome stories that you guys shared. And that's just a question that, I've been asking myself. I've never asked anybody else that question. So, it puts people on the spot, but I really appreciate you guys sharing that, man. That was really, really awesome, man. I want to thank both of you all for being on with me. Obviously, we could talk for hours and hours, but I want to be respectful of your time and the time of those that are watching, man. But I really, really, really appreciate this. I'm glad that we had an opportunity to have this conversation, and I hope at some point in the future, man, the three of us can get together and do some things together, and be
Agreed.
able to serve and help others in a joint capacity, man. So, Jason,
Sure.
Joseph, man, once again, I appreciate you all. It's been a pleasure. And for those that are watching, please take some lessons from this conversation. These are two powerful men that I'm glad to be able to be in friendship with. So thank you guys again.
Likewise, bro.
Thank you,
Likewise.
fellas. Appreciate y'all.
All right.